On Wednesday of this week, Chinese leader Xi warned President Biden during a summit that Beijing will reunify Taiwan with China. And if we look at the market this week, we will see that on Wednesday, the S&P 500 had an extremely red day for the first time in a while. But was that the real reason why? We're going to talk about that as well as every other important aspect from the market over the last week in today's review, right after you hit the like button on the video. Thank you. Let's do a little bit of trading stocks investigative journalism of our own. If I scroll down here just a little on the NBC News website that I found this headline from, we can see that this was announced, at least reported, on December 20th on Wednesday at 5 a.m. If I bounce back over to the stock chart for the S&P 500 and I dive to the intraday, we can see that on December 20th, on Wednesday, the dump really started around 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, market time. So nowhere near when that news was reported. That news was reported before market even opened on this day. So this is obviously not a one-to-one reaction to what the Chinese leader Xi had to say during the summit with President Biden. But there's a handful of ideas out there for why the market did this. The market's bond market also took a relatively large hit during this period. A lot of people are saying that's causing equity panic as well, even though typically the equity market goes up when bonds go down. A lot of people are pointing to that as a reason. A lot of people are just simply pointing to tax loss harvesting at the end of the year. A lot of people are simply just saying it's a needed pullback. Listen, in the last 8 weeks on the daily chart here of the S&P, there have been something like 5 red days in the last 8 weeks. 1, this is not a red day because of the gap. 2, 3, 4, gapped up. 5, gapped up. So yes, in the last roughly 8 weeks before Wednesday, there had only been 5 true red days on the market. We've been on an extreme tear. So possibly this has nothing to do with no news whatsoever, just a, if anything, healthy pullback after the crazy bull run we've been on. But please, this is going to be an interactive segment. Take a second in the comment section down below. Let us know what you think happened on Wednesday, and we'll have some respectful conversation in the comment section about it. Moving on, let's talk about the major macroeconomic news from the previous week of trading. On Tuesday, we got building permits, which came in at 1.46 million, previous just shy of 1.5, and it came in pretty much in line with the forecast and the consensus. Housing starts came in at 1.56, well over the previous and well over the consensus and the forecast, which is interesting. The current housing market dilemma, you're seeing high increase in housing starts. Interesting number to look at there. Not so much happened on Wednesday other than the President Xi news that we talked about already. And then on Thursday, we got our final reading of the GDP growth rate quarter over quarter. If you didn't know, the GDP growth rate comes out 3 times. There's an initial estimate, which tends to get the largest market reaction because, of course, that's the first time we're hearing the numbers. There's a second estimate, and then there is a final reading. What's interesting with the final reading was that it typically comes pretty much in line with the first 2 estimates. So your consensus and your forecast were set at 5.2, but the actual number came in 0.3 lower at 4.9%. So that's slightly interesting, a little bit lower than kind of what was forecasted from the first 2 instances of Q3 GDP growth. So, and we also got initial jobless claims, which right now during this market condition, while we've got the Fed, while we've got Jerome Powell talking about wanting to see a loosening labor market, this number is very important to keep an eye on. It may not be highlighted red on my macro calendar here, but it's still market moving news right now. Our initial jobless came in at 205,000, above the 203,000 previously reported, and below the consensus and the forecast at 209 and 215,000 respectively. All transparency out there, I am making this video on Thursday. It's the holiday season. I will not be around tomorrow. So tomorrow, we don't have the numbers yet for this video. I apologize. But tomorrow's a big day, and we get PCE price index as well as personal income and personal spending. So check your own calendar. I will link this calendar in the description of this video down below to see what those numbers were and how the market reacts tomorrow. In our next segment, we are going to be jumping into some Finviz screeners to look at not only the strongest and weakest sectors from the last week, but also the strongest individual stocks from the last week, which of course means that this is our sponsored segment, daytradingstrategies.net. If you yourself would like to download some custom Finviz screeners, as well as thinkorswim screeners, thinkorswim strategies, studies, custom watch list columns, they are all available for one low price on this website, daytradingstrategies.net. Link at the top of the description. Thank you for checking it out. If you remember from last week's recap, the strongest sector of the last week was real estate, in which you now find as the second weakest sector, just above utilities. And that's going to happen a lot. A lot of times you see these things sort of mean revert whenever you get an extremely strong sector, which this week has been communication services. You see potentially a little bit of mean reversion in the next week. But if we hop down to the 1 month performance, you will still see that real estate is the strongest sector over the last month, which is very interesting. So keep an eye there. But focusing on this week, of course, we did get the communication services sector as the one moving the largest. And if I go ahead and I go look for change, and let's look for stocks that have been up at least 20%, you will see some of the strongest stocks in this sector. A lot of handful of already beat down ones, it looks like. ASST, Grom and Core look like relatively beat down big perking stocks, but the strongest stocks within the strongest sector, which once again this week was communication services, followed by basic materials. We get technology, much like last week, smack dab in the center of the sectors. And then, of course, on the back of the news we've been talking about and the market dump that happened Wednesday, we actually have a handful of red sectors finally this week. Finally, a little bit of a pullback, actually potentially going to get a red candle on the weekly chart, which will make the first red candle in 8 or in 7, I believe, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, this is the 8th after 7 green weeks. Once again, I'm making this video on Thursday, so maybe it will still prove me wrong tomorrow, but maybe finally potentially setting up a red week, and you're seeing that in some of the sector performance here. The largest gaining individual stock tickers from the last week. We're going to take a look at the top 5 here, at least. Of course, you have the whole 20 in front of you if you would like to pause and look at all of them yourself, but we're going to take a look at SMFL doing 261%, taking the top spot of the week. POL number 2, CGEN 3, IVVD 4, and PRZO number 5. If we go ahead and move this over, adjust my screen, let's go ahead and take a look at the daily charts on some of these stocks. Once again, as always, per the usual, you will notice that as we're more zoomed out, a lot of these stocks are going to be really beat down. Oftentimes, your largest gaining stocks of the week are largely beat down stocks that just got a large short squeeze, right? So please, whenever I do this segment on the weekly recap that we're going to be posting every Saturday from now on, do not go necessarily run out and buy these stocks, right? Quite oftentimes they are stocks that are just up big because of very flash pan short squeezes, but it's still fun to talk about. And as always, if you traded any of these stocks this week, let us know in the comment section down below. Hopefully some of you guys were able to catch these things and make big money. But POL had a massive, massive day on Wednesday. This was a $1 stock that nearly touched 11 on Wednesday. Insane. If it wasn't for the pullback today, that would have been your top gapper of the week. CGEN, just a giant gap up, starting to fade a little bit now. IVVD. This one's nice, actually. This one's a little bit interesting. Please, I'm not telling you to go buy it at 370. It probably will retrace soon, but it actually is holding its gains here, turning into a little bit of multi-day strength is IVVD. And for number 5 and the last one, we're going to look at PRZO, which also is a little bit interesting. Big gap up over Tuesday night, and then it also gapped up last night, although pulling back really hard today. Also had kind of back-to-back gap days here. So a little bit interesting to look at. But those are your 5 winning stocks from the past week. A little bit of admin here as we wrap up the video. One, as I've mentioned a few times, this is a weekly recap up and until Thursday. So anything could happen tomorrow that will change the recap from what I just gave you. But it being the holiday season, I will be out tomorrow. With that being said, I will also not be in at all next week. Merry Christmas to everybody from me. Happy holidays if you celebrate something else. But I will be out next week as it is the week of Christmas. So obviously I will not be able to give a recap. So this video will not be available next Saturday for you to look forward to. will return the week after that. And finally, I just want to apologize. I feel like I'm coming down with something a little bit. I'm losing my voice sort of, so apologies for that throughout this video. But with that being said, that's your weekly recap for this week. Potentially the first red week in a long while. Maybe a little bit of a needed pullback, but hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, please, if you made it this far, just scroll down, hit the like button. It takes you a second, and it actually really does help me out. And if you're new around here, why not subscribe? I want 5,000 subs by the end of January, which we are well on the road to doing. 1, thank you if you're already subscribed. 2, thank you if you just hit that button. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign out of this video, but I'm going to send you guys to a link over here in which I'm going to walk you through how the Thinkorswim trading platform works. If you're interested in that, check it out.